can't wait to get this underway. Taking a look at the opening hand, that's a lot of land and it's a fairy. I think we're going to see a mulligan here from Jean-Emmanuel. Slightly better, Growth Spiral, Golos. Those are two cards you want to see, and Field of the Dead in hand for him this time.
Yeah, this is a hand that Jean-Emmanuel will almost certainly keep. Putting one of these lands on the bottom, almost certainly Orzhov Guildgate or Field of the Dead as one of the two selections. He does have blue and green mana there for Growth Spiral, so we'll see exactly which land he wants to put to the bottom. Looks like it's going to be Selesnya Guildgate instead, but again, still has blue and green mana, so life is pretty good, and has that Golos to be able to continue ramping. So a hand that makes some sense here for Jean-Emmanuel.
Javier Dominguez firing off the Once Upon a Time is going to reveal 5 cards off the top of the library and gets a mountain. So he's got 2 Zertars, a Gruul Spellbreaker, Embercleave, and Collision Colossus. So that's kind of the combo we want to see if we're the Gruul player. I want to see that go off.
That 1-2 punch can be incredibly, incredibly powerful. For Javier, his game plan is actually pretty straightforward, truth be told, which is let's get some 3-power creatures on the battlefield as soon as possible. Gruul Spellbreaker, of course, has haste, and then get enough creatures on the battlefield so you can play Embercleave on the cheap and get this game over with.
Yes, indeedy. So Javier just deciding, does he want to get the Kraul Harpooner down or get swinging straight away with the Zertar Goblins? Kraul Harpooner is the play. Nothing to take out of the air this time. No Gilded Gooses running around. But we will see a Orzhov Guildgate, followed up by Growth Spiral, Field of the Dead on Javier's end step.
Now, do keep in mind right now, Jean-Emmanuel does not have land number 5 for Golos, but does have ways to bridge the gap there into Fairy and Hydroid Crisis, so still plenty to do. For now, it's a Gruul Spellbreaker, and it's some beatdowns.
Go fast, smack face is what Gruul likes to do, or as Twitch chat says, smork. Getting in there for 6 points of damage. Fabled Passage is the draw off the top for Jean-Emmanuel. Can get Golos rocking if he so chooses. Just one man short of making some zombies, though.
Yeah, that is an ideal draw step there because it gives Jean-Emmanuel all the options here. Looks like he's going to sacrifice Fabled Passage. He'll meet the requirement for this land to enter the battlefield untapped. Looks like Island will be the choice, and now here comes the Tireless Pilgrim.
Golos is going to find perhaps another copy of Field of the Dead, but some consideration to get a unique land out. Let's see what the pick is. Going to go for the Boros Guildgate, making sure he's got the mana available to activate Golos at a later stage.
Yep, getting closer to doing that now is Jean-Emmanuel. There are 6 different land types. He does have the black and red mana to activate Golos as well, but if we take a look at Javier's hand, he has a mountain to play, only 1 source of green mana, a couple of copies of Collision Colossus in hand, and of course the incredibly powerful Embercleave. So he's going to take his time here with the World Champion to figure out how to sequence this because he knows he's probably in a little bit of trouble. I'm sure he's played against Golos ton leading into this tournament. I imagine he knows the matchup quite well.
Mountain onto the battlefield. What does he follow it up with? Little awkward not being able to cast both Zertars, as I'm sure he might like to. You know, go wide, smack face.
Yeah, but this
bring
is
it to the zombies.
This is still totally fine here because of Collision Colossus, so this is not going to be a bad turn here for Javier, no matter what happens.
And of course, Jean-Emmanuel knows exactly about those Collision Colossus cards. So, yeah, unfortunately, it looks like he's going to lose the Golos here. It's a good target to try and get rid of.
I mean, getting Golos off the battlefield, trampling over for a little bit of damage as well. I mean, this is the reason you play Gruul. You have effective ways of taking care of what Golos does. You have Flyers, you have Trample, and of course you have Questing Beast. So you check 3 very specific boxes when playing against this particular strategy.
Hydroid Crisis is going to be the play for Jean-Emmanuel. Pad his life total a little bit and gain a few extra cards in hand. Curious to see what he draws here. It's a land and an Agent of Treachery. That may come in handy.
Things are starting to get tough here for Javier. Again, it's all about the 1-2 punch, of course, of Collision Colossus and Embercleave, though it's rare that we actually see the collision portion come up. It's certainly ideal here. Going to take care of Hydroid Crisis and can keep moseying on along into the red zone.
Another Kraul Harpooner off the top there. The first will get blocked by the zombie. Gruul Spellbreaker going unanswered. And Embercleave. Oh, I love this card. There we go. Kraul Harpooner taking care of that zombie, trampling through for some extra damage. Taking Jean-Emmanuel down to just 4 life.
I think that's an ideal life total for Jean-Emmanuel to be at as well, because of Questing Beast and Skargan Hellkite both dealing 4 points of damage. So an ideal turn there for Javier. Another thing that Javier does a nice job of on that particular turn is he's done a nice job of playing around these sweeper effects. Instead of deploying more creatures and being on empty if a Realm Cloaked Giant or Time Wipe shows up, he's still got plenty in the holster to try to get this game over with some hasty damage there from the Goblins.
So Jean-Emmanuel's not out of this yet. He's got Agent of Treachery, he's got Teferi Time Raveler, so he can bounce some stuff, he can steal some stuff. What is his consideration at the moment?
Well, you know, how can you make the most of his mana? How can he have the most impactful turn, I think, is the question. So Agent of Treachery would take just about all of his mana, ignoring the force that's in his hand, to be able to take something. What he wants to take is certainly negotiable. Teferi Time Raveler can do a little bit of bounce action. Once Upon a Time can find something a little bit better than what's in his hand, potentially. So for Jean-Emmanuel, there's a lot to think about, and he's used a timeout while doing so. So he's got he's actually got none left in the holster, pardon me, and now he's actually got to make a play.
Teferi Time Raveler will enter the battlefield, bounce one of these creatures, drawing a card for Jean-Emmanuel Duprat. He's going for the Embercleave instead, though.
That doesn't surprise me too much, and it does make a lot of sense. Get that powerful equipment off of the battlefield if you can.
Still very much dead to these 2 creatures, though, so has to find a couple of lands here, perhaps. Growth Spiral can get 2 down on the battlefield for him. Hydroid Krasis revealed off Once Upon a Time, as well as 2 extra copies of Golos Tireless Pilgrim. Trample is really brutal against this deck.
Yes, Trample is incredibly good against this strategy. He's looking at 5 really good cards. Fabled Passage in combination with Field of the Dead would be 2 zombies. Castle Vantros would be nice if the game were to go longer, but it's unclear if we'll actually get to that stage of things. So for now, he'll take a Hydroid Krasis, he'll leave up Growth Spiral, and he'll hope to make it to the next turn.
Pelt Collector off the top for Javier Dominguez. Just reassessing the battlefield. How does he get Jean-Emmanuel Duprat dead? That's his question. It's going to start off with a Zertog Goblin. Give it haste and get swinging.
It's important to note that even if Javier does not win on this turn, he's still in very good shape, but it looks like he is going to win on this turn.
Exactly right. Hoping for a land there was Jean-Emmanuel Duprat, just to try and get a few extra blockers, but unfortunately not finding it off that Growth Spiral. So players are sideboarding. We're going to take a very short commercial break, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to find our very first grand finalist.
Hello, this is Reed. Sure, I heard this one recently. Why do you never see elephants hiding in trees? Because they're so good at it. I have a lot of friends that work the New York Renaissance Fair, so I try to make it every year. I dressed up a bit when I was a little kid. In recent years, I haven't really gotten my act together to show up in costume. I would be a knight. I would be Robin Hood. I would be a crusader. You know, I felt like I was one step removed from being. Oh, geez, I am extremely lazy in my eating habits, so pretty much anything is on the table for me. You know, like taking a frozen pizza straight out of the freezer and eating that can happen. Though when I'm really feeling ambitious, I'll throw it in the toaster oven, you know, throw some spices on there and have an actual good meal. I always wanted to have a pet dragon. I don't think they allow those in New York, though. I'd say the bigger, the better when it comes to dragons. I mean, you definitely, part of the point of having a pet dragon would be that you get to fly on it. I actually had books when I was a little kid of all the different sort of depictions of dragons from different cultures across all the different time periods. So I think I had a pretty vivid imagination, and I would have been open to anything. My habit is that I take my time and I make a really nice bowl of steel-cut oatmeal in the morning with like fruit and nuts and sort of everything good. And not only does it taste great, but I find that it's a huge difference on days that I have oatmeal or days that I don't have oatmeal in terms of my energy levels, you know, how fit I feel, how good I feel. So highly recommend it, steel-cut oatmeal.
Hola, ¿cómo va? ¿Todo bien? Si no salía el Nexus of Fate, automáticamente perdí el partido. ya había perdido el primer game y era la única oportunidad que me quedaba. Un momento impresionante, la verdad que cuando tenía el opt en la mano lo estaba girando y girando, girando, pues tenía que ser ese el único momento en el cual salga el Nexus. Y nada, traté de concentrar toda la energía y por suerte apareció ahí, con un poquito de suspenso, pero apareció. Alguien. Sí, fue bastante impresionante porque al principio no entendía si alguien había alterado la carta para hacerlo parecido a mí o si era una carta original. Quería tener un kiosco, como vender golosinas y esas cosas. Y siempre que iba a los kioscos veía que había un montón de golosinas y chocolates y nada, me imaginaba que estaba buenísimo estar todo el tiempo rodeado de eso. Sí, generalmente cuando juego en casa no me va tan bien porque estoy con música, con la tele, respondiendo cosas y me desconcentro un poco. No sé cómo será la expresión, pero soy muy bueno tomando, like, I think in English it is bottoms up, to drink like the whole beer
Water.
without pausing. Pretty good doing that.
Welcome back to Mythic Championship 5 coverage. We just saw Javier Dominguez take the first game against Jean-Emmanuel Duprat. Let's take a look at sideboard times now between both of these players. What is the plan going forward?
Well, Jean-Emmanuel just got ran down too quickly, so he needs some more forms of interaction. Realm Cloak Giant going to come in. Those copies of Aether Gust will come in, along with Devout Decree as well. He'll sideboard out some lesser cards in this matchup. Not really a matchup for Agent of Treachery, of course. It can show up and be potent in certain situations, but as we saw in that first game, was not timely enough to actually play a huge role in game number 1.
And for Javier Dominguez, anything different for him or just go fast?
Well, Javier, it's going to be all about going fast, of course. He's not going to change too much. Again, this is a matchup where he feels very comfortable. As you know, Javier is one that generally wears his emotions on his sleeves. Not very emotional in that particular game because things went to plan. So we'll see if Jean-Emmanuel can make us get a little reaction out of Javier as he's cool and calm with that water bottle right now.
I do love how he didn't like his deck that much. He seems to be just like, yeah, you know, it's okay. And Meanwhile, look where it's got him.
Only one game away from the grand finals.
Yes, indeedy. So, taking a look at the opening hands here, nice mix of lands and spells for Jean-Emmanuel Duprat. Javier Dominguez just deciding if he wants to keep his hand.
Yeah, this hand here for Jean-Emmanuel looks to be pretty good to me. Aether Gust is some nice interaction. Golos, of course, is great top end, and Securitas Root is going to tie the room together beautifully. So a nice hand here for Jean-Emmanuel, to be sure.
Kicking things off, Blossoming Sands enters the battlefield tapped, gaining Jean-Emmanuel 1 life, Circuitous Root off the top. So no Growth Spiral for Jean-Emmanuel. I bet he would have liked to draw that just to get his ramp rocking, get to Golos as quick as he can against this rather aggressive Gruul deck that Javier Dominguez is piloting. Zertal Goblin is going to enter the battlefield. Will it get a counter or go fast? It is just a 3-3 and it's getting Aether Gusted. So off you go, Little Goblin, back to the bottom of the library.
Yeah, that doesn't come as much of a surprise there to me. Javier just saying, I don't really need this card. I have another copy in my hand as well, so. Yeah, Embercleave being the draw step, that's important to note.
Yeah, that's a lot nicer than a Zertal Goblin. No offense to the little guy, but Embercleave is a lot more fun. Gonna run out the Paradise Druid here, get some ramp going, get these bigger creatures down, get the Embercleave online ASAP. And Realm Cloak Giant is the draw for Jean-Emmanuel Duprat. He's able to fire off a Circuitous Root here, has to take 2 points of damage to do so, but that's okay. If you can gum up this battlefield with a bunch of zombies, then you don't mind that 2 points of damage.
And he's going to get his black and red mana from the Orzhov and Boros Guild Gates.
Setting up nicely for the Golos.
Yep.
So no stomping from the Bone Crusher Giant. He's just going to come into the battlefield, as is. Time Wipe is the draw for Jean Emmanuel. Now, when do you fire this off? Also has Thromblock Giant.
Things are starting to get a little bit difficult here for Javier, but Javier's doing a nice job of presenting just a couple of threats at a time. His hand is totally fine, speaking of Dominguez, but for Jean Emmanuel, this is exactly what the doctor has ordered. You have 6 different land types. You have the ability to cast all of your spells. Probably going to search up a Field of the Dead here, and then play a Temple Garden afterward. Though he does seem a little bit frustrated by what he's done. A little curious as to why. So there's your field. So that's 6 different land types, and now there is number 7, so there's your token. So it looks like he may have he shorted himself 1 token. That's why you see him say oops, because if he plays the Temple Garden first, and there's a battlefield tap, that's your first token. Then he plays Golos, gets Field of the Dead. That's token 2 and 3. So he missed a trigger. A mistake we oftentimes don't see from a player of this caliber. I wonder if it's going to come back to hurt him.
Time will tell. Zertok Goblin for Javier Dominguez. That's the second copy left in his hand. Once Upon a Time is the draw for Jean Emmanuel. Time Wipe is looking not too shabby right about now. Able to pick up the Golos and just wipe the board. Let's see if he wants to do that.
I think he's going to make the easy play first of, hey, I got some zombies attacking into a 3-3 and a 4-3. What do we think about this? Oh, there's nothing to see here.
Super suspicious if you ask me. So those 2 zombies are now dead and buried. Once Upon a Time going to get fired off before the Time Wipe. Taking a look at the top 5 cards, there's more Golos action and a Fabled Passage, which can make double the zombies.
Yeah, Fabled Passage can make double the zombies. Temple of Mystery can definitely help with the draw step. Gonna go with the Temple instead of the Fabled Passage. Here's Time Wipe to pick back up Golos. And it seems like a 3rd game is going to be on the way here momentarily, Alias, because this thing is all going Jean Emmanuel's way, even though he did miss that little trigger there.
Oh, it's totally fine. He would have killed them all anyway.
That's very, very true. So nothing to concern himself with.
So very much Jean Emmanuel Duprat in the driver's seat. Javier Dominguez has nothing on the battlefield. He's got a lot of action in hand, but nothing he can cost right now. So Golos Tireless Pilgrim will enter the battlefield once again, go and find that 3rd Field of the Dead, and start making a bunch of zombies.
Yeah, you're going to see Golos first. 3 triggers will resolve. 3 zombies on the way. We might see Security's Writ as well afterward. Now all of a sudden, there is a ton of power on the battlefield. You can see Javier Dominguez. We're finally getting a little emotion reaction out of him because he knows he is super far behind.
How many zombies?
Yep.
Holy smokes. I think we might see a concession here. Javier maybe just want to take one more look on the top of the library. What is it? It's a mountain. Could get a Skargan Hellkite out, but pretty much a concession there. Jean Emmanuel Duprat picks that up in rather commanding fashion.
Easy win there for Jean Emmanuel. Very, very, very well done by him.
So now Javier is on the play. So he wants to get out of the gates as quick as possible. How does Bant Golos adjust their game plan?
Well, Bant Golos is going to be on the draw here, so I still think they're going to leave in all that interaction, all that good stuff that way. So you're not going to see too many changes, I don't think. Has a game plan to Jean Emmanuel and pretty happy with it. Javier also really happy with his sideboarding. So he's just going to submit, and we're going to get ready for a 3rd and final one. Javier on the play.
Oh, yes, indeed. And just a reminder, friends, Javier or Jean Emmanuel will become our very first grand finalist. So everything is on the line here. $100,000 up for grabs, a spot in Worlds, and very many mythic points to go by. I believe it's 50. So starting things off, nice selection of lands. All of them tapped, which is not super great, but we did get the Growth Spiral number 2 for Jean Emmanuel, so he can offset the slow start with a few ramps if possible.
Yeah, this is a little bit scary here because it definitely is a slow hand. Honestly, here for both players, and Javier really needs a 3rd land. You saw him make a little bit of a facial expression there. Of, boy, I really hope I draw an untapped 3rd land for Gruul Spellbreaker. And if he does, he could run away with this game very easily.
Does he?
Yes.
Oh, goodness me. Here we go. Gruul Spellbreaker triggers on the Pelt Collectors. They are now 2-2, swinging in for 7 points of damage, taking Jean Emmanuel Duprat down to 12. He needs to find some action ASAP.
Jean Emmanuel is in some serious trouble. It's these kind of starts why Javier elected to play Gruul to beat Bant Golos.
Oh.
Bant Golos on the draw right now is really far behind, and if you look at Jean Emmanuel, he's not even sure what play he's supposed to make this turn. All of his lands are entering the battlefield tapped in Fabled Passage and Boros Guildgate. Sure, Growth Spiral is an option. Sure, Aether Gust is an option, but they're not the best of options. And Javier feeling pretty good up top there.
Yeah, he looks like he looks a lot better right now than Poor Jean-Emmanuel. This is a very tricky situation for him to be in. Didn't find his early action, couldn't get anything down on the battlefield to just
Oh, baby,
stable
this one's
attack.
over. This one's over. 1, 2,
Questing
3,
Beast.
and 4.
Goodness me, that is an absolute train wreck of damage coming through. Aether Gust can stave it off for a little bit, but you've got to think it's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, Aether Gust right now is going to be targeting the Questing Beast potentially. I mean, the tough part here is Jean-Emmanuel is going to do the math. So Questing Beast is going to trigger both Pelt Collectors. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 13 points of damage. If the Questing Beast resolves, of course, it'll trigger the Pelt Collectors. If you gust it, it won't trigger them. So that'll give him a little bit more time. Either way, Javier is going to press my favorite big red button. Attack all.
5 points of damage required for Javier Dominguez to make it into the final.
And you saw Javi keep the Questing Beast on top. He knows that even if these creatures get dealt with, he's got one Questing Beast on top, one Questing Beast in his hand, and another Haste Threat and Scarring and Hellkite.
Oh,
There's
man.
almost no way for Jean-Emmanuel to come back here.
So Javier Dominguez, unless something enormous goes wrong, will make it into the grand finals. And Cedric, because Javier Dominguez is the reigning world champion, whoever he faces in the grand finals will immediately make it through to the world championship.
Well, that's an interesting wrinkle to this tournament now. Javier is making life good for whoever comes in second place, but life is good for our 2018 and reigning world champion. There is a Questing Beast.
Game.
And that is gonna do
Wow.
it. Javi with the gruel. Show me some emotion, baby.
Yeah, decisive victory there for Javier